1-8, gauge, clear. Come on. Clear. Clear. Wire gauge. Light them all up. Come on, fire. They're right in. Keep shooting. Keep shooting.
Bushmaster 2-6. We need to move time. Bushmaster 6 Golf, Ranger Mike. Over.
Listeners and viewers ask me all the time, what do I think the state of free speech, the First Amendment, is in America? And the state is under attack, under siege, but there is a resurgence of people realizing how important it is and a major backlash to it. If a whistleblower or a journalist exposes something that a criminal government is doing, then they're heroes. If you're a whistleblower or a journalist and you expose criminal activity and things that are illegal, you should be celebrated, not put in prison or killed. Let's remember people like Julian Assange and Edward Snowden that have paid a very high price for their actions, striving to tell the truth to the public. We're told that Julian Assange and Edward Snowden broke laws. But when you study US law closer, you then discover that if you're releasing classified information but exposing a crime and a violation of law, then it's actually protected speech.
And this is America. When something goes wrong, don't we want somebody to stand up and say something about it?
Next year will be equally busy. WikiLeaks has already over 1 million documents being prepared to be released. Documents that affect every country in the world. Every country in this world.
My goodness, Julian Assange is definitely a hero. Well, I have to say that I have followed Julian Assange since the very beginning. His only crime is that he told the truth about US war crimes. And so now those people who commit the crimes, they go free, and the people who expose the crimes, they get incarcerated.
Yeah, any great Bushmaster elements, Cowboy White 6, right?
Assange was treated as a criminal. He was denied the quality of being a journalist, and his due process rights were violated.
We didn't have any involvement with the law. Our singular task was to bring to bear the populace of Australia and elsewhere in the United States, bring them to bear upon the problem of Julian Assange and its associated problems, like the restriction of the First Amendment of the United States and the use of the Espionage Act of 1917 to pursue a journalist.
Assange was rights under Article 19 to the extent he is to be considered a bona fide journalist. Were completely trampled upon, no doubt about it.
That we spent $30 million. So $30 million, 15 years of Julian's life, tens of thousands of people around the world.
You can't come forward against the world's most powerful intelligence agencies and be completely free from risk, because they're such powerful adversaries that no one can meaningfully oppose them. If they want to get you, they'll get you in time.
So when Snowden saw what they did to other whistleblowers who tried to go public, he knew that if he tried to follow that same path, he too would face arrests and punishment. So he did the exact opposite.
Every act of progression in our nation's history has involved tension with law. And that's because the laws were wrong.
So, we have to realize that those agencies that cracked down on Assange and Snowden and that arrested, these are not operating in the interests of the people living in France or in England or in the US or anything. I mean, Snowden has been able to avoid arrest by taking a bit of a wise course of action.
Snowden, being the idiot that he is, not much of an analyst, didn't realize that the United States could turn off your passport with a couple of keyboard clicks while you're in flight. Got stuck in a Moscow airport because he couldn't get through the transit zone because his passport was dead.
What he exposed with PRISM, the total surveillance dragnet program tied to the Five Eyes, this infringes people's personal liberties and constitutional rights in his mind. So it seems like if you actually see that the law is being infringed upon, people's rights are being infringed upon illegally, that nobody voted upon it, these are secret programs.
The U.S. looked into the operation and said, yes, you're wrong for spying on Americans, but nobody in the United States went to jail. They just want Snowden in jail.
Because people believe that once we have achieved and established a free and open society, that it will remain that way and will always be there. But the reality is things can backslide very quickly, and we have seen democracies fall in just a matter of a few years.
He was accessing that showcased evidence of war crimes, abundant war crimes, and he had to do something about it to simply live with himself. So I think in that sense, he's got a pretty good defense philosophically and legally if we actually used the Nuremberg Code seriously and took it seriously, what was done over 80 years ago.
And I personally, it's come out in court and it's come out in congressional testimony, I have been the direct target since Trump was the Republican nominee in Cleveland in 2016, when Trump, myself, and several hundred other people were placed on a list of national security threats by the outgoing Obama administration. And so I've experienced the CIA fomenting and funding lawsuits against me, dirty tricks, Justice Department, criminal investigations, all different forms of harassment and targeting of my family, tens of thousands of press reports and television reports lying about me, really trying to foment hatred of me, hoping that somebody would kill me.
Your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope.
I don't feel like I live in a free country anymore, no, I don't. We do have a First Amendment, which is supposed to protect free speech, but what is happening is the government is finding more and more ways to go around the First Amendment. They're using laws like the Foreign Agent Reporting Act, otherwise known as FARA, which was passed in 1938. They're using that to go around the free speech.
That's always been my big thing, right? You know, the land of the free. The land of the free. Bullshit! Okay? There are more prisoners per capita in the United States of America than any other country in the world. Okay? I mean, it's like land of the free. When? When did that happen? Okay, because I don't know when it happened.
Well, let me just say to you that our Constitution is not working. Our Bill of Rights is not working in the U.S. today. So to single out one particular aspect of our civil liberties, I think does an injustice to the fact that there's been an erosion overall. And you could say that the United States of 20 years ago is definitely not the United States of today.
There is a change that's happening in the United States. I think there is an increasing crackdown on free speech. And I think the reason that you see this increased censorship, this increased crackdown on speech is because the U.S. Ruling class cannot ideologically defend itself anymore.
Mr. President, what do you say to Vladimir Putin's threat? I say to you, be quiet till I speak, okay? That's what I say. Good idea? What do you say to Vladimir Putin's threat of war, sir? It's a serious threat.
You gotta be quiet. I'm gonna make a statement here, okay? All right, anyway.
I've seen what was happening during the protests with the situation between Israel and Palestine. How do they think those students are going to feel about police that's supposed, again, to secure and to protect their citizens? But instead, all what we see is arrests. We see the violence toward, again, citizens of that country, and so on. Just growing as a snowball in the country. People are not going to remain silent for a long time. You cannot scare everyone.
Its actions are leading to the murder of thousands and thousands of people. You know, there used to be at least a pretext that they were doing it for lofty goals. That's gone now. They don't even pretend.
The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment.
Said then that all eyes are opening to the rights of man.
If we ignore the instability and intolerance that fuels extremism, our own freedom will eventually be in danger.
I think it was George Herbert Walker Bush who said that the lunatics, we keep them in the basement, but now they're in charge of the government. Minnesota! So somehow somebody allowed them to get from the basement into the government, and that's where they are now.
We opt into this system. If we continue hiding our heads in the sand and ignore the dictate of the globalist, then in the near future, every one of us will be accused of something based on a 10-year-old post.
Okay.
You know, I can't say that America invented censorship because that wouldn't be true, but we've got to admit it. We came up with the awesomely horrible idea of cancel culture. Sounds great, doesn't it? But we can do better. A culture of accountability. Doesn't that sound even better? Because it's about culture and accountability. And no, targeting of the media is a completely different thing.
Yes, so I actually wrote a book on cancel culture called Cancel This Book. And I am very concerned about that phenomenon of cancel culture. Not as much when it comes to celebrities, honestly, because, you know, I think when you're a famous person and you put yourself out there in that public kind of way, in some ways, you know, you invite a certain amount of public scrutiny and backlash, perhaps. What I'm more concerned about is the cancellation of regular, everyday people, of activists who say the wrong thing and are canceled by their colleagues, of professors whose students have canceled because, again, the students don't like what their professor is saying.
Almost all, if not all, of the colleges of education are now woke. They participate in an identical ideology. So they give will-be teachers credentials to teach kids in the system who then basically indoctrinate people our children into a certain worldview.
My friend, Sarah Westall, who used to have she was in the top 10 globally of podcasts as scored by Apple. And now you can't find her because her narrative is different.
Well, I've been canceled. I lost my professorship job recently because of my position on the SMO, because I wrote pieces defending the SMO as an act of collective self-defense by Russia in support of the people of Donetsk and Luhansk.
That 14,000 people died in the conflict between, again, the government of Kiev and their own people in the Donbass.
You know, some students, I guess, Ukrainian students, complained to my superiors about my writings, and so I lost my job.
So I'll start my own podcast, okay? And so that was definitely anti-cancel culture. you know, so that we actually had a voice. And, you know, if that changes, I guess I'll have to adapt again. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. And clearly, you know, we both self-publish. You know, I don't need some publisher telling me about something, you know, and saying, no, you can't do that.
A lot of my books are history for that reason. So I'm not doing so much of the current events thing, which is I think where people get burnt a lot more and where their guard is up a lot more. Like my friend Alex Craner had his Bill Browder book shut down in 2 seconds after he self-published on Amazon. It was just
really
shut down, yeah. And he discovered after the fact that Bill Browder directly pulled some strings with somebody at Amazon and the Clinton administration or the Obama administration to just tank it, and no explanation needed. Whereas with me and my wife's works, we often do things that most of the people who would go to jail have been long dead. And we're trying
right. I got you. Yeah. So you're not offending anybody who's still walking.
So the cancel culture only goes to the extent that you are spreading ideas on official or / semi-official platforms, to the extent you are someone that the public considers to be reliable, and you will take this audience with you on your independent platform. And this is what we're seeing more and more now.
And we as podcasters are on the edge on the edge of media. Our goal and our job, our duty, is to constantly find out where the line is as to what we're allowed to say and what we're not allowed to say, and then push the boundary a little bit. Just a little bit. We're not free. We can't say anything we want. I know I can't say everything that I would normally say. I say this about, you know, there's certain issues that I say all the time.
Yes. And Tom, really not to cut you off, I think that when we talk about cancel culture, one of the reasons why it's not accepted so much today too as well is a lot of comedians in this country really took a lot of bullets, right? It was a lot of comedians pushing the limits right now about what can't be and what can and what cannot be said when it comes to cancel culture.
I just try to avoid the situation completely. Now, I don't like the term Karen because it's a little racial. It's an annoying white woman who complains. That's not fair. There's annoying women of every ethnicity. Let's be honest. Yes, we've all met one. There's Latina Karens. They don't have a name. I call them Karenitas.
A thing right now you can't make fun of? I think it's too sensitive at this moment. Transgendered people. See? You can't do it. Can't make fun of them. It's too sensitive. In fact, you can't even call them chicks with dicks anymore. No. You have to call them men who talk too much.
So I really tip my hat off to a lot of the comedians who really pushed back about this. They were able to take the cancel culture kind of environment and flip it on its head. You know what I'm saying?
I think cancel culture is actually antithetical to democracy. If we truly value free speech rights, we should not attack people and try to destroy their livelihoods because we disagree with their viewpoints on things.
We were told that cancel culture was designed to protect the innocent, the most vulnerable, that it was something to have a freer society and not let bullies run wild. But in practice, it's turned into an instrument of censorship for our political and social spheres by the elites against the people. And the #1 target on the front lines of this fight for speech and culture is our conservative values. But the facts are in now. Cancel culture was designed to take out America's culture and every other major indigenous culture that could stand against the globalist New World Order takeover. Cancel culture cancels our culture.
It's character assassination. If you're inconvenient to the state, the United States or United Kingdom or others of the West, then your character will be assassinated. You'll be reduced to the status of a pariah.
because people will never competently in a state of non-fear and non-scarcity accept those types of restrictions on their freedoms. So you got to do it by terror, and you got to do it gradually. And those passing these cancel culture programs, I think, always intended to have a total control over acceptable speech and narratives, an invisible fence around their mind that involved things like stop think. So before you eat, or controlled, what do you call it, predictive stupidity, where you can get people to shut off their minds.
I like that.
And so a new United States is literally being born before our eyes. But that is not a United States that represents all the good that exists within the people of the United States. The United States should not be allowed to function as it does because the people should make the United States totally ungovernable.
When they had complete control over the media, when there were only 3 networks, or then there were only 3 cable networks, or there were only 3 social media platforms. Now they don't control one of the social media platforms and they're freaking out. Now they want to, now they want to call Elon Musk a Nazi. And it's silly, it's dumb.
I think that Elon Musk's cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries worthy of being looked at.
But, it's very interesting because we're trying to figure this out. But I do agree with you 100%. The ruling class, the elite, is not a monolith at all. I mean, it's, you know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right, Craig. And the other thing I like to say all the time is, look, being a former, scientist and being a former chemist and high energy physicist, I see everything in terms of energy, right? I don't, and I see everything in terms of costs and energy, right? So lies are expensive and the truth sells itself.
I mean, you have to say things that are controversial. You have to question the mainstream narratives, and you have to be willing to risk cancellation. So, I mean, I can honestly say, if you don't want to be canceled, just don't say anything important, and you'll be fine. You'll have a meaningless life, but you won't be canceled.
My friends, I know this information is dark and it's frightening, but it's all around us. And if you face a problem, you have a really good chance of stopping it, especially when right's on your side. There are still independent platforms where bloggers can safely share their thoughts and publish their content. I'm talking about Telegram and its creator, a Russian man of principle called Pavel Durov. Everything was going so well until recently Pavel got busted in France. Suddenly he turned out not to be so principled after all. They pinned a dozen or so different offenses on him, and now Telegram has a renewed user agreement. If you violate it, your personal data can be shared with the authorities. Durov himself has stated, quote, "These measures will deter criminals. Telegram search is meant for finding friends and discovering news, not for promoting illegal goods. We won't let bad actors jeopardize the integrity of our platform for almost 1 billion users." And just like that, with a gun to his head, he rolled over.
For me, my number one priority in life is my freedom.
Durov basically was arrested and placed on garde à vue, which is some kind of remand, for 4 days on charges bearing on complicity, accomplice, accessory, I would say in English law, to the crimes of child trafficking.
I do understand the need that if you have people that are engaged with sex crimes against children, and the social media platform should be able to control who gets that kind of access. When it comes to expressing political opinions about certain issues, that is where the freedom of expression, I think, is essential.
I think that the case of Pavel Durov's arrest is it's absurd. I mean, as Telegram is simply just a social media messaging sharing platform that prizes free speech and the right not to give data to various government intelligence agencies that might want to spy on the users. He thought that he was somehow safe, and he stepped into France. Whether or not he was actually invited by Macron, I don't know. It would be shady if he was actually invited on false pretenses and then arrested, but I don't know if we can ever know that.
I mean, the guy just built an application. I don't know that he intentionally built something that was being used for drug trafficking and everything else, not to mention espionage. And now they're like, well, your application is being used for this, so you're guilty by association.
I'm always looking for apps on my phone. I'm always looking for apps that allow me to communicate with some level of privacy. And it's not that I have anything to hide, because I'm a very public person and everybody knows whatever it is that I think. They know what I think anyway. But the idea of having some government bureaucrat snooping on my conversation is abhorrent to me, especially since I was born and raised in a country that champions, at least to the rest of the world, that it is the acme of democracy.
I'm a regular user of Telegram. I've not seen any moves yet to suppress speech and to try to make it behave like, say, Facebook.
I don't know exactly what that's going to change coming out of this. It's certainly not going to be good. But in terms of the details, I'd be curious to see what Cowboy has to say about some of this.
I mean, if we break it down to the simplistics, okay, that's no difference than saying your son robbed a grocery store by gunpoint and I'm going to arrest you. That's off. He did it, I didn't. Okay?
An 81-year-old woman has been awarded $2.9 million after she sued McDonald's, claiming their coffee was too hot.
We're hearing tonight from the Colorado man who says microwave popcorn destroyed his lungs.
After having paid a paltry 5 million euros in bail money, he's allowed to essentially continue living his lifestyle, but he lives in a golden cage. To the extent the measures taken against him are not including him being sent to prison while he awaits for his trial.
The kidnapping and bludgeoning of Pavel Durov is a very serious shot across the bow to Elon Musk, and the fact that Telegram is now becoming compromised because they literally kidnapped the owner of it is absolutely a direct threat to Elon Musk. That's the globalist strategy, is take out the leaders, and it is just a sign of how weak our enemies are that they would boldly be trying to do that, because there's something called a Streisand effect, and anything you try to suppress, the people get more interested in.
Because we certainly cannot take care of the world if we can't take care of our own.
The roads are fucked. There's no infrastructure. Bridges are falling apart. You can't pay for education. Everything is too expensive.
Because we're so focused on what's happening in other parts of the world.
So in that sense, we differ. You know, I'm the kind of guy who just thinks it's abominable when a superpower with all this military might, with no provocation, you know, attacks, just unprovoked, attacks a country that is, you know, like you know, Iraq. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Korea. No, sorry, Ukraine. Terrible.
The most profitable doctor visit in North America is the blood pressure check.
So this idea that we've convinced our children that you need to get a credit card early to build your credit score, to go into debt, so you can build a score, to go into more debt, is the reason we are almost $1 trillion in credit card.
Like, I was paying for nursing school, half loan, half out of pocket, and COVID hit. And now I'm looking at my last quarter of nursing school and I'm realizing I'm not gonna be able to graduate. I'm literally out of money.
People are just sick and tired of all this.
And, we have problems here at home. Why aren't we addressing these problems?
In America, you're dealing with a lot of corruption because orthopedic surgeons, pharmaceutical drug companies, they're going to lose a lot of money if they have stem cell treatments because there's so many different things that it could fix.
50% of our kids are chronically obese or overweight by the time they're 15.
Getting jobs for students. Yeah. It's been hard right now.
I think people just forgot how to respect other people.
I would say not loving each other. We don't love each other enough.
The world could go one of two ways. Either the U.S. is going to somehow accept that the world is changing and that there will be other powers in the world equal or greater to itself, or we are headed towards catastrophe because the U.S. will go to war to protect its hegemony. I fear that it's the latter situation we're going to face, that we're going to face war now. All of us, in the interest of the U.S. protecting its claim to supremacy in the world.
We need to see what's going on. If the truth will blow it up, then so the truth should blow it up. But the fact is the Americans aren't seeing the truth.
And so making America great again is a great slogan, but you have to ask yourself the question, why did America start becoming not great?
Because it's without that parchment, without that Constitution, the United States doesn't exist. It's just something called the United States.
We can look at example after example after example of the people organizing, mobilizing, saying no, and then, governments having to retreat.
I think in the end of the day, I think people like us, the ones who are taking the bullets right now, the people who are getting punished the most, the people who are getting canceled or demonetized, we're going to win eventually because we did stick to our guns. Everybody has a price out there, you know what I'm saying? And what you're seeing right now is the people out there, the truth tellers, the ones who, are getting demonetized and getting the platforms, those are the ones you should be matriculating to right now because those are the ones who couldn't be bought.
So there's got to be a way for us to find justice and peace, real peace, not a Pax Americana.
I fear that my own country is going to bring down the world, and I lose sleep over that.
Shoring up traditional pillars of democracy is more important than ever.
We're concerned by the PRC's increasingly coercive behavior in the Indo-Pacific, which has profound implications for the whole world.
A big reversal. President Biden will now let range missiles.
Ukraine fired American-made long-range missiles called Attackers. White House approved their use outside Ukraine's borders.
Just a day after the U.S. finally gave permission to Ukraine to fire.
American-provided long-range weapon.
I'm proud to see President Biden taking the stands that he's been taking.
Legitimate and legal to strike, for Ukrainians to strike to the targets on the Russian territory.
The times we live in are so fucking insane, so dangerous, so un-American, so classically tyrannical. I love America. And America has done a lot of good things and been an example in many ways to the world. But our country has been hijacked. The globalists want depopulation. They want civilization to fall apart. They want a return to feudalism. They're in competition against open, free societies. But whatever happens to me, I can see the world waking up. I can see the Great Awakening. I can see a new Renaissance. And I know that if we continue to press with the truth, it will defeat the lies, and our children together in the future can have a civilization to live and thrive in, and that's my goal.